All right, everyone. Welcome. Hello. My name is Nicole Meyer-Emery. I am an Include Me specialist with the ARC of Pennsylvania. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are going to be talking about self-advocacy and how families can help their children to develop the confidence and the skills to express their needs, make decisions about their future, all that fun stuff. Before we get started, though, I do want to kind of lay our foundation as we always do. Our training is conducted in that safe zone, so please feel free to share your thoughts and ideas openly without any fear of negative feedback. This is a safe zone. Everyone is welcome here. Along those same lines, please feel free to take care of your needs, get up, stretch, move around, use the restroom, doodle, fidget, have a snack or lunch, because it is lunchtime, when we welcome it all. We do want to hear from you all, but we have a limited amount of time, so we will not be answering questions as we go, but there will be time at the end for that. And before we dive in to the information, we're going to start with a Menti as we always do. If you've been here before, welcome back. If you're new here, welcome. Here is our Menti, and Anthony's actually going to pull that up, and I think we're going to drop the link in the chat as well. There it is in the code. So you'll go to menti.com and enter that code that's in orange or has been dropped in the chat. And I'm going to get started here. I'll stop sharing, Anthony.
Thanks, Nicole. Hey, everyone. My name's Anthony Chan. I've been working at the ARC for a number of years now, and I'm going to guide you through a quick survey where we're going to answer a couple questions together, just to kind of get a sense of where everyone's at on self-advocacy. I know this is a really important topic for many people, so we just want to get a sense of how comfortable everyone is with the subject before we get into the meat of this presentation. So I'm going to actually pull up the website. And remember, you can go on to the chat. We have that link, menti.com. And the code to join is 46952506. And I see someone's already found it. So hopefully you can see it on the screen right now. But this is what you're going to be able to answer a couple of questions. So we're going to start with some icebreakers. So first one's pretty easy. If you had a time machine, would you go into the past or the future? Looks like someone's going to the past. I know for me personally, I would love to see the future. Might be a little bit scary, but past would be cool. Maybe check out some dinosaurs or something.
I
All
have
right.
watched one too many back in the future, or back, what is it, Back to the Future. Too many of those where they go back and then something happens that goes wrong. They step on a butterfly and changes the whole course. I would just rather go to the future. Let's see what's coming rather than trying to fix what happened.
Absolutely. So would you rather be able to talk to animals or speak every human language? As an animal lover and someone who has pets, I would love to talk to my animals, but you know what? Being able to travel anywhere and speak fluently, I think there's a lot of value in that. And I think that's where everyone's leaning to. So that is great to hear. If life were a movie, what genre would it be? Would you think your life is a comedy, a drama, action, romance, maybe a little bit of everything? Hopefully not too much action. I like a cozy, boring life. Comedy's good though. I'm always down for a good comedy. All right. So enough of the icebreakers. Let's see how people feel about self-advocacy. This question is a sliding scale. So on the left side, you can slide the marker to the left side if you're not feeling confident about your child's ability to self-advocate, or you can slide it all the way to the right if you think they're great at self-advocacy, and somewhere in the middle if they're in the middle, like many of us are. Okay. Just trying to get a sense of people's self-advocacy. Awesome. So it looks like we got one. Child's ability self-advocate's pretty good. That's great to hear. You know, it's such an important skill to have, not only in school, but I think in life in general. You know, being able to express yourself, your goals, your needs, that's really important. And being a good communicator, however that may look, is absolutely an essential life skill. So thank you for sharing with that. And we just got one last question for folks. In what settings do you see your child advocating for themselves the most? Do you think they tend to be more vocal at home, maybe at school, in social situations, or it's something we didn't consider and it's none of the above? Okay. Great. So yeah, it looks like there might be some other instances we didn't think about where they might be really great at advocating for. So hopefully we'll be able to hear more about that later on. I'm going to go ahead and throw the screen back to Nicole so she can start talking about how we can promote self-advocacy for our kids.
Yes, thank you, Anthony. Um, as we said, and as we have done in the past, we will have 30 minutes of some basic information. It's going to be a little less than 30 minutes, and about 15 minutes of Q&A at the end. If you have questions along the way, please feel free to utilize the Q&A feature. If you would like to be anonymous, or the chat feature if you would like to share publicly. We will have time to address these questions at the end. And last note, before we begin and before we get started, we are not coming to this presentation and any future presentations that we might do as experts on the services that we discuss. But what we are here to offer is that basic information, and also the opportunity that if we don't know the answer to a question you might have, that we're going to try to help you find that correct answer or send you in the right direction, because we know that it can be confusing, and it can be difficult to even find where you need to go to ask the question to the correct person. So here we go. What is self-advocacy? Well, self-advocacy is a vital tool for independence and lifelong success for everyone. By the end of today's session, we're going to have some practical strategies that you can help to support your child in becoming a strong self-advocate in all of those areas. So self-advocacy is that ability to speak up for oneself, right? It's the ability to make informed decisions, to be independent, and it actually helps with a lot of future success for individuals. It also helps with problem solving, knowing your rights and responsibilities, knowing who to reach out to when you have a problem or you need help, and just taking control and ownership over your own life, and having control over that life. That is self-advocacy. And it matters, right? It matters. So why does it matter though? When students learn to advocate for themselves, they actually build confidence, they build independence and critical problem solving skills. And it also really helps them to understand their rights, helps them to communicate their needs, and successfully transition into higher education if that's their choice, or employment if that's the path that they choose. Ultimately, self-advocacy empowers them to lead fulfilling independent lives, and knowing who to go to, who to ask, and how to advocate for the needs that they might have, and the supports that they might need with those. So the first step to self-advocacy is actually being self-aware of yourself. So being able to talk to your child about their strengths and their challenges actually really helps them to identify how their disability might affect them in school. It might help to know how it affects them in social situations and daily life. When we are self-aware, we can then understand our abilities and our limitations, and then we can work on strategies on how to communicate those needs more effectively, and seeking that appropriate supports after we're self-aware. So we want to encourage that our students have some self-reflection time, self-awareness, and having those conversations. Sometimes they could be difficult conversations, but they're necessary conversations. In the long run, it will be beneficial to recognize those strengths and challenges. So teaching those self-advocacy skills at home. So you can help to foster these at home by encouraging decision making and problem solving in your students. So giving your child choices and letting them practice making those decisions. Role playing is also a really great tool that you can use with these scenarios. So problem solving is one of those things that sometimes if you haven't solved a problem that you might have difficulty with doing, right? It is a problem. You have to solve it. So you can do some role playing in those scenarios. You can practice them. So one of those might be like asking a teacher for extra help or maybe explaining their needs to others. With any of these, when teaching self-advocacy, it might be a small goal. It might be a small set achievable goal that might grow and domino later. So we want to celebrate all that progress together as we are mastering smaller goals within the realm of self-advocacy. So being self-aware and recognizing and then doing some problem solving or making some decisions and then advocating for that support later after we feel comfortable in those kind of steps that came before. A piece of self-advocacy is understanding your legal rights, right? Understanding the legal rights are essential to self-advocacy. So laws like the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, or IDEA, Section 504, and that Americans with Disabilities Act actually protects students with disabilities and ensures that they have access to those necessary accommodations. The Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, or that IDEA, provides that special education services through that Individualized Education Plan, or that IEP. If your child doesn't qualify for an IEP or they don't need that specialized curriculum, they might have a Section 504 plan, which still offers those accommodations like extra time on tests or seating arrangements, that sort of thing. But that last one, the Americans with Disabilities Act, the ADA, actually protects their rights in school and then beyond school. It is a law that protects people with disabilities from discrimination in public places. So this means schools, businesses, and other public places such as transportation, that sort of thing, must make sure that your child has equal access to all of those areas. So the ADA actually helps with the building of ramps for users of wheelchairs, communication support for kids or adults who might have hearing or vision needs, making sure that schools don't really treat kids unfairly because of their disability or because the inability to get to a specific part of the building because there's not ramps or anything like that, because there should be ramps. Easily accessible. Parents and students should review this IEP or that 504 plan if your child falls into that category, and discuss what kind of accommodations are available. What are they receiving? What is that student receiving already? And then how to ask for something else that they might need or might think would work better for them. So teaching students to explain their needs is really that key piece of self-advocacy. It ties into that being self-aware and understanding their disability and what those strengths and what those challenges might be. So through that IEP, you're going to need to partner with schools a little bit in building that relationship with the teachers and the staff. You can help by building those relationships, like I said, taking an active role in those IEP meetings, but making sure that your child is also involved. We like to say that when a child turns 14, they should start attending their IEP meetings. It's actually beneficial for them to attend before 14, but when they do turn 14, it is almost crucial that they attend those IEP meetings as well, even if it's only for a couple minutes, to tell what they would like to do, what kind of supports they might need, that sort of thing, or even just to hear some of the supports that they're already receiving or some changes that might need to be made. The more students participate, the more confident they gain, or confidence they gain in speaking up for themselves, right? They're hearing these things, they're talking, they're involved in the conversation. That open and respectful communication with the team is a way that we can model that for the students. You can model that self-advocacy by maybe advocating for them, and they can witness that and see that model of it. Making sure also that if your student is doing skills or strategies at school and they're doing them independently, or they are self-advocating in school, just talking with the teacher, talking with the school team, maybe the paraprofessional, PCA or aide or whoever it is that's with them, just to have a conversation to see if we're on the same team or on the same page. We should be on the same team, on the same page on that self-advocacy, especially if we're trying to build it. If they're building it at school and we're building it at home, making sure that maybe we're using the same strategies, or we're fostering the same kind of self-advocacy, so that we're not teaching two different things, that sort of thing, and everyone's just on the same page on those skills and strategies. So, effective communication is also another key piece of teaching self-advocacy. So when we're working with students and when we're with our students, we should be teaching them to be assertive when we are self-advocating, right? You need to just to say it in a way that's not passive. We need to say it in a way that's not aggressive, right? We need to say it assertively when they're expressing their needs or when they're asking for something. Everyone actually has the right to feel safe and respected, and that includes students with disabilities. Setting boundaries means knowing what feels okay and what doesn't. So that's another key piece of this communication and advocating for yourself. Teaching your students that if someone or something makes you feel uncomfortable, you can actually say no, you can actually say stop, or you can say, I don't like that, and it's okay, right? It's okay to speak up for something that is making you feel uncomfortable, or if someone is pushing you to do something that you really don't want to do. This comes in play when these students go into work and they have maybe a supervisor or a boss who is constantly just giving them more work, right? And just more work. And if you're setting those boundaries or understand those boundaries, then you can almost guard yourself against having too much work that you get stressed or overwhelmed or those sort of things at work. So a key piece of that employment later. Another strategy is to use I statements. So like the example that's there, I need extra time on tests because I process information differently, can actually help students to articulate their requests clearly and a little bit more confidently. These are things that you can practice at home, and these are conversations that you can practice at home. It can really make a big difference when you practice them, because right, home is our safe space. We're with family, we're with people that we love. They can feel safe to maybe make a mistake or say something wrong or that sort of thing, and they know that there's no negative that kind of comes along with that. Not to say that there is in school, but we're in our safe place, and you can practice those things and then say them with confidence when you go to talk to that teacher or to the aide or whoever it might be when they go back to school. Self-advocacy can actually happen in the community as well. So self-advocacy extends far beyond school, far beyond the home, or work. You can encourage your child or your student to participate in community activities where they can practice speaking up and asking for help in those scenarios. And when I say community activities, so inclusive opportunities or opportunities that aren't necessarily only for students with disabilities, kind of pushing those boundaries a little bit into an inclusive environment or someplace else that isn't just for individuals with disabilities, because that will help with those problem solving skills that we were talking about, and also helping with that communication skills and self-advocacy, right? Talking, speaking up for what needs and supports that you might need in those new spaces. Just asking for help. Simple real world experiences like ordering food or asking for directions can actually help students to build that confidence, develop those self-advocacy skills. Because you're making a choice, right? You're making a decision on what you want to eat, and then you are ordering it, right? You're ordering it there for for yourself. And then afterwards, also paying for the items yourself, going up to the register, ordering, and then putting the card in, giving the cash, that sort of thing. Not only are we working on money skills there, but also the maybe the self-advocacy once you get that total and it is 21.50 and you only have $20, and okay, I'm sorry, I need to take something off. I don't have the money for that. I know as a kid sometimes, if we were in a restaurant, my grandparents would give me the cash to pay for the meal and send me up to the waiter, the waitress, the hostess, whoever it was, to pay. And although it was felt like they were throwing me into the deep end of a pool, it built a lot of really great skills on paying for myself, talking, communicating to other individuals, building those skills. So, as students move toward adulthood, self-advocacy becomes even more critical. In college and in the workplace, students need to request those accommodations and navigate those new environments independently. Fortunately and unfortunately, at the same time, parents aren't involved sometimes when they're in those workplaces, or when they're in that adulthood. They're in those colleges, those that higher education, etc. We can give them some of the skills and we can help to support them as much as possible, but a lot of times we're not on the job there. So it's really critical that students have these skills as they go into adulthood. So help those students by discussing disability services in those higher education, practicing workplace scenarios as well, doing some role playing, problem solving, asking for job accommodations is one of those things. Preparing for interviews is another way that you can just help your student to become a little bit more comfortable with it. Interviewing is a set of skills that comes that's, you're supposed to be professional, you're supposed to keep your head up, you're supposed to show respect, you're supposed to make eye contact, all of these things. But we can help at home as parents to foster these things. And if this isn't something that that person is going to do naturally, then teaching those students how to explain that they're actually not going to be showing respect by making eye contact, because we know that eye contact, through studies and everything like that, can actually be really difficult for some individuals. I'm not going to be making eye contact with you, but I'm going to be showing respect in other ways, right? I'm going to be sitting up in my chair. I'm going to be speaking clearly. I'm going to be very open in the way I sit. But just because I'm glancing around the room doesn't mean that I'm not listening to what you're saying. I might repeat the question back to you, but that doesn't mean that I didn't hear. Just giving myself extra time to process, whatever that is. Role-playing interviews to work through some of these scenarios. How do you enter a room? How do you talk how do you communicate with that interviewing? Interviewing is not a natural skill, so it can feel really weird. So just practicing some of those questions. Tell me about yourself. What are your strengths? These are ways that you can help students to advocate for themselves, to be a little self-aware. When it comes to workplace accommodations, remind your child that they have the right to ask for support. That's that Americans with Disabilities Act that we were talking about. They can ask for extra training time or to have assistive technology on the job with them. They can ask to have a job coach with them, which also is a form of accommodation that they might need. You can help them practice how to explain their needs to that employer, why it might be beneficial for them to have extra training time, why they might need somebody to sit with them if they're doing testing or quizzes or anything like that on the computer. So a whole bunch of reasons, but those are all ways that you might have to advocate for yourself for those accommodations. They can ask for accommodations in writing with the right writing tools and support. I mean, your child can really succeed at work, but no matter what form of communication you use to ask for those accommodations, you're still self-advocating. You still have to ask for those and know your rights and know how it's going to be beneficial to you as an individual. Um, as always, we have our Padlet that is available. It's there. It's a bunch of resources that are available on there. Under the self-advocacy tab, under that section, we actually have quite a few support groups that are out there. So you don't have to do all of this self-advocacy work yourself at home. Excuse me. There are some really great networks across the state that are working on them. So ASAN, the Autistic Self-Advocacy Network. There is the PA Youth Leadership Network that you can be involved with. And there's self-advocates. I think it's United as One is another one. Excuse me. Um, and I just yes, there's some really great self-advocates across the state that you can get connected with, and they are linked on our Padlet. There'll probably be a couple more that we will upload there as well in the next couple days. You will be also able to find a recording of this session. So if you missed anything, if you had to step away or anything like that, you can come back, rewatch it, re-listen. It will be available on that Padlet as well as the actual slides. So you can have that information at your fingertips as well. There's a bunch of other resources on there. Feel free, if this is your first time with us, please feel free. You can go back and watch some of those other trainings as well. And I'm pretty sure somebody popped it in the chat already, the link. We're going to go back to that Menti. So I'm going to stop sharing here in a second. You should be able to use the same link and the same code, and it should work. There we go.
All right, thanks, Nicole. So yeah,
Mhm.
we've just got a few more follow-up questions on the Menti. We want to see what your take on self-advocacy is now that you've heard Nicole speak on the subject, but we also want to get your feedback on what else you want us to cover. There's a lot to transition and life after school. So we definitely want to make sure we're able to cover the most pressing topics for you guys. So I'm jumping back into the Menti. And we've got another sliding scale here. So now we want to ask, how confident do you feel in your ability to teach self-advocacy to your child? Just let us know quickly if you can. Great. Looks like we've got people feeling pretty confident, and hopefully you've gotten some new ideas, maybe some new concepts to think about on teaching your children when it comes to self-advocacy. As you can tell, there's a lot to it. And then last but not least, we want to ask you guys, which topic would you like us to see discussed in the future? And you can choose one to all of them. So it's multiple choice. Choose as many as you think is helpful. We have topics related to college, higher education, housing, careers, benefits counseling, social security, disclosing a disability, relationships, and dignity of risk. So really helps for us to know what you guys think are the most important topics. We're definitely going to rank them and prioritize those topics when we can. And if this is your first time joining our transition series, we actually have a bunch of previous ones that we covered last year. So if you are looking for recordings or PowerPoints or resources on some of these topics, we've actually covered a little bit about things such as careers and getting help from places such as the Office of Voc Rehab, Office of Developmental Programs, supports coordination. So we've already covered some of these in part, but there's definitely a lot more that we can cover as well. And nice thing about this is you can save the link to that Mentimeter and the code. This survey will be up for 7 days. So if you don't have time now, you got to get back to work or finish up your lunch break, that's fine. You can always come back and answer these at a later date. I'm going to go back and stop sharing this since we've already gotten some good responses here. And we're going to be able to wrap up this presentation pretty quickly.